Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. This was last year. I just sold my home in my HOA. About 5 years ago, I bought a 1,500 square feet townhome condo in an up-and-coming town, right in the downtown area. This is a valuable property with home prices having increased 35 since I purchased. This was a wonderful area, within walking distance of everything I loved as a single bachelor. When I moved in, all my neighbors were wonderful. We all got along great except for one person. She belonged to the HOA board but was moving on because you can only serve 8 years. We'll call her Gimpy J. Gimpy J is a 65-year-old widow whose husband died unexpectedly from a heart attack. She doesn't have much to do. She met a man online and moved on, and I was happy for her. Talking to my passive neighbors, I hear bits and pieces of why things are at the HOA because of Gimpy J and another woman who had to move because of age. On the board, the two of them bully residents. They changed the landscaping from mulch to pine needles. They stop upkeep on the pool deck because they hate kids. They reported one house for anything and everything because their kids were too loud. She bullied a heavily ill woman because Gimpy J was feeding feral cats and attracting raccoons and possums near our homes, and animal control was called. Residents did not like her. I got married, and my wife has been living with me for 2 years now. At this point, we are very happy. During this time, Gimpy J began spending more and more time with her new boyfriend. He lives about an hour away from our house in the country. She would initially spend the weekend, then a week there, until she began living there all the time with very little time spent here. Maybe 15 minutes, 2 hours a month would be at our complex. Now at our complex, there is only one rule on parking. Each resident is entitled to 2 spots close to their building, but not necessarily in front of your unit, and there is no limit to parking spots you may occupy. Close to it is the key word. We have new folks on the board who are all under 40 years of age, and the place is starting to get spruced up. We have some friends over regularly, and they park in front of our unit. Gimpy J had 2 hip replacements done, and we had not seen her in about 7 months. Our little area of the complex consists of 8 townhomes that face each other, 4 on one side, 4 on the other. There are 8 spots for 3 homes and a handicap spot for one of our neighbors. Gimpy J started coming back around in January for longer periods, a day on the weekend to go out downtown or to visit friends. She started complaining that we were in her spots. Again, there are no assigned spots. We were willing to move our friends' vehicles for her to another empty spot. That is, until she started occupying 2 spots at a time with her vehicle. This behavior continued as she would come and taking 2 spots anytime she was here. The rules in the master deed says no vehicle can take more than 1 spot without written permission from the board of directors or property management group, and cannot continue for more than 2 days with permission. This was to account for residents moving in and out. Suddenly that spring, my wife had a medical issue and was hospitalized for 4 days and on disability for 8 weeks. My mom was the only family member on both sides that had the capability of coming down to where we lived to help us out. She drove down and we needed to occupy 3 spots. I promptly let our property management company know, and the board of directors knew what was happening, providing them with my mom's make, model, and plate number, and that she would be here 6-8 weeks, just in case anyone had an issue. Gimpy J is home for the first time in 6 weeks. We had a car in front of her house, but she had room for her vehicle. She marched over and banged loudly on the door, demanding we move the car, and tried to open my front door and walk in my home. Yes, she tried to enter my home. It shook my dog, who peed herself. It was that loud, who in turn growled and chased her out. I promptly told her there was no assigned parking, and the rule is 1 car, 1 spot. We had moved a car out of respect one last time, and saw she occupied 2 spots with it, per usual. The next time it happened, 2 weeks later, we refused to move our vehicle. We also began taking pictures for our records and communicating with our HOA of Gimpy G's erratic behavior. She continued to arrive, bang on our door, scream at us for having a car parked in her spot. One time, banging on the door, she dented the frame with her keys. A few additional times when we were not home, she would come in and park occupying 2 spots. I would take more pictures for my records in case something happened because of her erratic behavior. Finally, it happened. About this time last year, I was at the gym and I got a call from my mom and my wife, frantic that someone is going to tow my wife's car. I drive home as fast as I can, and it's Gimpy J's boyfriend's son and his girlfriend, whom we have never met. This jerk, who doesn't live here and has no business here, is screaming at us and insulting my pregnant wife and mother. Now we know he can't do anything except scream and try to intimidate us outside. He calls his mother-in-law about the situation. Gimpy J drives an hour to our complex. When she gets here, she parks her car behind all three of ours and gets out blocking us in, and I had enough. I quickly snap some pictures. I called the police. I will not feel unsafe or be harassed in my neighborhood by people who do not live there, or are barely there. Gimpy J realizes I called the police and moves her car. I print out all my documentation, pictures, and communication from the HOA. I shower quickly because I'm disgusting from the gym and throw on a nice polo shirt and shorts. Pregnant wife sits in her rocking chair and my mother sits calmly at the kitchen table. The police arrive and we can see them hollering, waving arms widely and screaming. The police come to the door and we kindly open up. Gimpy J tries to walk in before I block her and ask her to leave my property and invite the police officers inside. We apologize that we even have to call them over something so petty, but our neighbor is acting crazy and her behavior has been escalating. We explain what is happening, show them communication from the HOA, show them pictures. The officer quickly had enough of these jerks. He imposes a no trespass order on my porch and will not let her near my property. If she steps foot on our walkway, she is in violation of the order and she will be arrested. We watch him go back out and explain calmly to her, and she starts screaming along with her boyfriend's kid and his girlfriend. This goes on for a while, and the officer calls for backup and a second car arrives promptly. Gimpy J promptly declares it as her property too. She pays her fees and that he can't do that because everything is community property outside of a home. She goes and marches up to my stoop and he arrests her, charges her with disorderly conduct and harassment. The police then tell Gimpy J's boyfriend's son to go home. He gets in his truck with his girlfriend and they drive off. As soon as he hits the road outside of our complex, the second police officer pulls him over for DUI. That's right, the guy screaming at my wife and mother had been drinking the entire time and was loaded. Police couldn't do anything in the complex, but could when he hit the main road. Both of them were hauled off the jail and we stopped hearing from them about parking. Screw HOAs. I was desperate to join a new job after my husband and I were both laid off last year. When I was offered a new role, I knew it would be a step down from what I was doing, but the manager and the team seemed great, and that part has not changed. However, since my manager Gary was so busy, he basically offloaded me to another manager, Jane. I was supposed to be the connection point between my team and Jane, but it quickly became Jane micromanaging me. She would ask me to work through lunch, move, cancel vacation days, call at 11 p.m. on weekends, and order me around on phone calls. She also made nasty comments about my weight and said I was big for my race. The list of personal slights so long that it filled 3 pages. I would talk back to her and she did not like that, and that provoked her more. I only stayed because we needed to pay the bills. Finally, I had a mental breakdown on a Friday afternoon after she yelled at me for something trivial about scheduling a meeting without including someone from her team who I didn't know about. I was dealing with a family tragedy and couldn't take it anymore. I told Gary about the situation with Jane and he was sympathetic and not at all surprised considering half her team quit. He immediately offered to move me to a different team under him. I was thrilled. Well, turns out going to the new team didn't help. Jane continued to order me around from afar. When I ignored her emails, she came to my desk one day and started loudly talking about how I'm not qualified for this role. Gary overheard and finally told her off, but the verbal abuse did not stop. After 2 months there, I abruptly wrote my resignation letter and stapled the list of Jane's offensive comments and CC everyone. Gary offered a bunch of accommodations to try to keep me, but seeing how she was still provoking from afar, I said the only way for me to stay would be for her to go and he did not have authority to let her go. Her manager was in a different country and despite several HR complaints from at least 5 people, nothing was done. So I left loudly and without shame, telling everyone exactly why I was leaving. Times were very bad for 3 months. There were nights we would eat slices of bread just so we could pay the mortgage and emergency expenses from a health crisis and a funeral. Even after he found a job, we were still catching up on bills and still are. I spent months applying to 5, 10 roles per day, sometimes over 20. Last month I saw a public memo about a big shot from a former company joining the company I just left. I used to work with this guy closely and texted him a congrats. Let me know if you need any insights on the new place. We had a quick call where I told him some ins and outs, where I thought they could innovate. After this call, he asked me to join the team as his chief of staff. I accepted. Imagine Jane's shock when we had our first all-hands call. All the VPs and above were asked to welcome the new Big Shot in a giant conference room. In Big Shot's speech, he breezed over that I'll be his chief of staff, along with a few key names. I now sat 2 levels above Jane, and apparently, within the 3 months I was not there, the other half of her team turned over. Every single person left. Gary was excited for me and said all nice things. However, Jane took the classless route and sent Big Shot an email about how I'm an unqualified idiot, that I used to work for her, how I tried to get her fired, and that she suspects I lied to get ahead. She didn't even try to be fake nice. Big Shot forwarded me her email and asked what this was about. I was so nervous and excited. Little did Jane know I was a director at Big Shot's competitor company and was already a level above her, so 2 levels isn't a big leap, and I worked with him for 5 years. I had an hour call with Big Shot and told him she was bad for the company culture and was a nasty person in general, but the evidence he needed was Gary confirming that her whole team has turned over. My prior resignation letter, which was still sitting on my desktop when I logged in upon return, and a few other nasty emails she sent her recent staff, which they were happy to share with us. Big Shot fired Jane on Friday. Standard Saturday night. 10 pizzas ordered to a house in a well-to-do area known for its posh houses and expensive cars. We quote our normal delivery time as, despite being quite busy, we were smashing out the orders. At the time, I was borrowing my brother's car to deliver in, as mine was not operational at the time. So I drive out to this house on the other side of the town and note that there's a decent-sized house party on the go. I get out of the car and walk up to some guys standing on the lawn drinking. Normally, you get a pretty nice reception at house parties, so I didn't think twice. The guys look at me and are like, "Oh, now it's on," and one of them jogs off into the house. Next thing I know, this guy and a few of his mates come out of the house yelling at me about how the delivery was 2 hours instead of 1 hour. I made it in about 45 minutes, had the receipt to prove it, and how the order was messed up. They hadn't looked at it yet either. I told them to talk to the manager if they had an issue. Otherwise, I'd appreciate it if they could pay up so I could get on doing my job. The guy tells me to get lost and that he's taking the pizza for free. I tell him that I'm not giving him anything without paying. I turn and get into my car. Next thing, 3 guys approach the car and start opening the doors. Older car, no central locking, had just got the pizza out the passenger seat so the car was unlocked. They took the pizza and attempted to attack me. I started the car and floored it. The door swings shut from the momentum, but then I notice my new problem. I'm in a cul-de-sac facing the wrong way. I turn around and what do I see? A line of about 7 guys blocking the road, all walking toward me. I did a quick scan to see if there was an easy way out, laneway, alley, anything to avoid going near them. And in the short space of time I had, I found nothing. So I basically just floored it at them. When I reached the line, I was doing about 80 kilometers per hour, 50 miles per hour, and 2 of them dived out of the way, the others trying to hit the car. I get through, and I'm gone. Call the store on the way home, and the cops are at the shop when I get there. The station was near the store. I filed a report, and they asked me to get in the car. They drove me to the house. By the time we get there, the party is really picking up. People drunk all over the lawn, broken garden gnomes being thrown around, people sitting in a car in the driveway with the music pumping, very drunk. Cops call for backup from the car before we get out. They ask me to wait in the car until they call me. They go up to some guys on the lawn and start speaking. One guy walks off into the house and fetches the guy who abused me, instigating the whole thing. The police talk to him for a bit, and then I'm asked to join them. They go nuts. They start yelling at me for trying to kill them, etc. The cops finally calm some of them down as another cop car approaches and 3 more police roll in. Several are still abusing and yelling, but most have calmed down. Police are still handling 2 or 3 angry people yelling, threatening, etc. Next thing I know, there's mace, batons flying, people getting thrown to the ground and cuffed. So the whole time I'm standing there, minding my own, being accused of throwing the pizza at them, demanding more money than was owed, etc. In all the mess, another car is turned up, a wagon with a cage in the back, and about 4 people are loaded into it. After about 20-30 minutes of this, we finally get everyone to a calm talking volume. I'm accused of all of the above things, and on top of that, trying to run them over. In short, the guy asking questions says, "I don't believe a thing you or your mates are saying. Give me the money for the pizza so I can give it to the driver." So I'm given the money and driven back to the store by the police car. The house is permanently blacklisted with the store, and the police supply the owner of our store with all the addresses of the main antagonist to also blacklist. There were 8 blacklisted addresses in all. One of them was a long-term customer, as the store record showed well over $10,000 in orders being delivered there. The next day, my brother comes home and asks me what happened at work the night before, as apparently he was accosted by 2 guys who reckoned they saw his car at their party earlier that night. He denied it, and they left him alone after a few minutes of questioning. I quit that job about 4 months later, but I got a text one night from a guy who still worked there, telling me that the owner of one of the blacklisted houses drove to the store, demanding to know why his house was not allowed to be considered for delivery. When he was informed that his child was one of the antagonists in this incident, he marched his kid to the store to apologize to the driver involved. When he was advised I no longer worked there, his dad made him apply for a job as a driver so he could learn his lesson. Kid didn't get the job, and the house didn't get blacklisted. So, picture this. I'm chilling at the local pool, catching some rays and trying to enjoy the last few sips of my melting ice-cold soda. I decide to cool off in the pool, do a little lazy backstroke, the usual. But as I'm floating along, I get this whiff of something that's definitely not chlorine. Now, I'm no pool expert, but I'm pretty sure the scent of a public restroom isn't part of the aquatic ambiance. I decide to investigate, like the pool detective I never wanted to be. Lo and behold, there's this lady. Let's call her Karen, for the sake of convenience. Straight up relieving herself in the pool. I kid you not, she's got this smirk on her face like she just won the lottery or something. Being the chill person I am, or at least I try to be, I decide to let her know what's up. I swim over and I'm like, hey, not to be a buzzkill, but that's not exactly what the pool is for. You feel me? I thought I was being subtle, but Karen takes it to a whole new level. She turns to me, and with a glare that could melt ice cream on a winter day, she goes, mind your own business, sweetheart. If the pool is good enough for me, it's good enough for everyone. So, without thinking twice, I let out a, hey, that's disgusting. I guess that's when Karen decided she wasn't having any of it. She turns to me, and before I know it, she got a handful of my hair. Like, who does that? I'm standing there feeling like I'm in a bad reality show, and this lady's got a grip on my hair like it's the last slice of pizza. Now, I ain't one to back down from a fight, but this is a public pool, not a boxing ring. So I did what any sensible person would do. I called the lifeguard. Shout out to Jake, the lifeguard, for swooping in like a superhero. I explained the whole situation, pointing to Karen, who's now trying to blend into the poolside crowd. Jake ain't having it. He tells Karen she's got to go, and she's throwing a fit like a toddler denied candy. But here's the plot twist. Turns out Karen has a history of pool-related incidents. Like, seriously? Who knew there was a pool incidents database? Anyway, the manager gets involved, the cops are called, and I'm just sitting there with my hair all messed up, wondering how a day at the pool turned into a crime scene. The police show up and Karen is still insisting she did nothing wrong. It's like a bad episode of a reality TV show, complete with dramatic gestures and exaggerated claim. They talk to witnesses, including yours truly, and it's clear Karen's not getting out of this one. Fast forward a bit, and Karen's escorted out of the pool area, still protesting her innocence. It's almost comical how she's acting like she's the victim here. But the best part, as she's being led away, she shoots me the dirtiest look, like I'm the one who ruined her day. Classic Karen move. Now, you'd think that'd be the end of it, right? Oh no, my friends, it gets better. Turns out, Karen is now banned from the pool. The manager ain't taking any chances with her shenanigans. And to add the cherry on top, she's facing charges for assault. Yep, you read that right. Hair pulling in a pool is apparently a crime. I leave the pool that day feeling like I just survived a wild adventure. Hair a bit tousled, but victorious. As I'm walking away, I hear someone mutter, "That's the person who got Karen banned." I'm like, heck, yeah, that's me, the pool justice warrior. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Regarding the survival mode thing, years ago I was living with a couple of friends and lost both my job and my place to live within the same 24 hours when the economy crap itself and the bank foreclosed on the owner where we were staying. Had about 2 weeks to get out, and I ended up homeless and living in my car for 2 years. That's another story entirely. The point, however, is when living in a large city in a vehicle, your survival mode kicks in constantly. You're always worried, you're always cautious, and in the event something happens that's a threat, You usually think of the most effective, brutal, and quickest way to remove it as a threat. As a result, even years later, now that I'm stable, I don't really have the ability to gauge an appropriate response to a threat. Maybe that's why I went overboard here, but I'll share the story and let others be amused or pass judgment as the case may be. When I was living in my car, I developed a relationship with someone who was a bit more stable than I was. She didn't really care that I lived in a car, as I was always presentable and was able to hold down temporary work. Nobody really knew I lived in a car unless I shared that info with them. She was big on helping people and was genuinely a good person, as I thought at the time. We had a falling out and just gradually lost contact. We remained friends on Facebook, and she was fairly popular on there with about 500 friends. This is important later. About a year after the two of us broke up and about 6 months after I'd last spoken to her outside of a few casual comments and likes, I was doing much better. I had just started a new job that I was about to go through training for, and afterwards would be out of the car and into a more permanent residence. I had done a lot to work towards that point, and things were great. I was at a Kinko's using their internet on my laptop and my phone rang. It was her. After a very brief exchange of pleasantries, she gets to the point her partner got her pregnant and left her. She needed someone to take her to the abortion clinic, and since she was poster, child perfect girl to her circle of friends and family, she couldn't ask any of them to do it. So she was asking me. On one hand, I was perturbed that this was the first time we had spoken in a long time, and this was the only subject she felt was important enough to call me on. On the other hand, I try to be a good guy, and even though it backfires, I was raised that way. But in this situation, I really couldn't help her because I was supposed to drop my car off at a friend's house the next day, then hop a bus to another state for my orientation and new job. Even if I wanted to, which I really didn't, I couldn't. I told her as much, and then crap hit the fan. She started screaming at me on the phone, acting hysterical, crying, telling me that I was a horrible person. I had to help her. I didn't care about her, etc. By this point, the other people in the computer area are hearing her scream at me over my phone, and I'm getting quite a few stares. I told her in a tense voice that I had to get off the phone and for her to send me a message. Some of you may be getting ahead of me here and see where this is going and think in advance I'm a jerk, but please reserve judgment. I promise it's worth it. My Facebook chat window starts lighting up with more insults. I realize that this may bite me in the neck, remember about how I don't respond well to things I see threatening, and start to steer the conversation asking her details, and she gets dragged along. I confirmed in the chat that she was pregnant. I confirm in the chat he ran out on her. I asked why he ran out on her as I thought the two of them were close. I tell her that once again I can't help her as I need to catch a bus tomorrow morning. Up to this point, I'm willing to wish her luck and let it go. I start a new life tomorrow. She then drops a bombshell on me. If you don't help me with this, I'm going to tell everyone that it's yours and that you are leaving me behind because you don't want to take responsibility. Oh, hell no. She did not just say that. And then I realized she said it over Facebook chat. Instead of warning her, instead of telling her to get lost, I instead start thinking about what a false accusation would do to me on the eve of everything that's about to change for my life. I have one thought born out of the survival mode that got kicked into high gear. Destroy this witch. And I know how to do it. I ask her if she's serious when she knows there's no way the kid is mine. She says she doesn't care. I ask her who she thinks is going to believe her. She says it's my word against hers, and who are people going to believe? Her or some homeless guy who lives in his car? Knowing I now have enough ammo, I pretend to reluctantly relent. I tell her, screw it, fine. I'll help you, but I can't take you to the clinic tomorrow. It will have to be later this week. I have to change my plans. Let me call you tomorrow. She agrees. I then get to work. Within a few minutes, the chat transcript had been sent to about 100 people on her friends list, and I tagged all of our mutual friends. The chat was also linked on her church page and her employer's page. I also sent it to her parents for good measure as an afterthought. Almost instantly, my phone starts to blow up. I shut off my laptop, shut off my phone, and went out to my car to spend my last night in it. There's not much I can say about the fallout that will do it justice more than what's probably playing in your heads. Sides were chosen, legal threats were made, firings happened, death threats were thrown around. Needless to say, her reputation was completely ruined to the point that she not only had to delete all forms of social media, but she had to move clear across the country to get rid of the stigma from the small town she grew up in. Over the top, maybe. But for me, it was mere justice. I work for my country's customs administration. We basically do what you would expect. Anything that comes into my country is subject to duties, levies, taxes, and the goods can be inspected to ensure all the paperwork filed actually conforms with reality. Certain differences exist between private and commercial goods. Most private goods are not subject customs duties, exceptions being meat, alcohol, tobacco, and a few other products. But other than that, customs law applies in every aspect to both commercial and private entities crossing the border, meaning that many regulations usually reserved for truck drivers and professionals can easily be applied when it comes to private individuals. This was something a particularly nasty traveler had to realize when he bumped heads with my superior. I was working a night shift at a rather small border station in the north of my country, where me, a colleague, and my superior had activated an irregularly manned border station. Not all border stations are permanently manned, and opening a border station outside of its assigned working hours is referred to as activating it. It was 3:40 in the morning, and we didn't see too many cars. The ones that crossed over were foreigners who drove into our country for work. Many of them lived in the border region, knew the procedures, and played ball. Some were friendly, some a bit grumpy, unsurprising if you have to get up that early. But all of them did as we asked. Show some identification, answer our questions about what is in your vehicle, and maybe endure us taking a look inside. And then it arrived, a black Porsche Cayenne. Until then, I didn't even know that Porsche made SUVs. In the Porsche was Mark, not his real name. Mark basically looked like Christian Bale looked while playing Patrick Bateman in the movie American Psycho. The suit, the haircut, his briefcase. Everything indicated that he had money and wanted people to know about it. Which is fine. People should enjoy having nice things, and signaling is a part of social interaction. We treat everyone the same, and we expected this encounter to go as uneventfully as the previous ones. Boy, were we wrong. We nicely asked him for his ID card or passport, which he handed over. We then asked Mark what he was transporting in the car. When he stopped, we saw that there were several cardboard boxes in the trunk and on the back seat, which he answered with, "I don't see how that is any of your business." Bad mistake. It was in fact not only our business, but the very nature of our job. And since Mark had not only failed to answer, but had also failed the attitude test, we ordered him to open the trunk. He got out of the car and opened his mouth again. I will open the trunk. But just so you know, I want this done by the book. You touching my stuff is unacceptable to begin with. So if you damage anything or I find as much as a smudge, I will put you in a world of hurt. Now confirm that you understood me. Now. At this point, my superior stepped forward. We've understood you quite well. Now, I just need to know whether you were serious when you said that you want this to be done by the book. Can you confirm that you want this done by the book? Mark then sealed his fate by answering in the affirmative, upon which my superior updated him on the situation. Splendid. According to customs law, the person crossing the border is responsible for opening and unloading the vehicle he or she drives, must unpack all containers, present the goods for inspection, repackage them, and reload the vehicle. When it comes to non-commercial crossings, we usually do all that, as not to inconvenience private travelers. But since you want this done by the book, you will have to do it. Failure to comply allows me to keep you and your vehicle at this border station for as long as I want. Any kind of resistance allows me to restrain you. And now get to work, and make sure you don't accidentally damage your own car or its contents. Mark then had to lift several cardboard boxes filled with all kinds of personal items. It appears he was moving apartments into the border station, had to unpack all of them, lay out the contents piece by piece for inspection, repackage everything, and reload his car. Had he simply answered that the boxes contained nothing significant, we would have taken a quick glance into the trunk and he would have been on his way after 3 minutes. This way, the whole procedure took 35 minutes and left some nice sweat stains on Mark's shirt. He filed a complaint. The complaint was dismissed, since everything was done by the book. Hey Reddit, I can finally share my story because now it is all over. I'm on mobile, also English isn't my mother language. And this is my first post ever on Reddit, so please be gentle. And sorry for the long post. To the backstory, this all happened in an EU country. I don't say which one, sorry. I did my apprenticeship in a mid to big size factory as a machine operator. After I completed my apprenticeship, I worked in production for around 1 month. Then I got called into the office and they asked me if I can do some holiday replacement, so I said yes, why not, better hours and clean work. I got teach the systems which were pretty because I manufactured those parts for 1 year. After my coworker came back from their vacation, they asked me to stay and became a part of their team. So I said, yes, sounds good. So I was now working in the sales quality department. Now to the present time, 7 years later, our team increased from 5 worker to 15 because of restructuring, which helped us a lot. My boss retired last fall, and after Christmas we got a new young boss around my age, 27, who was a major a hole and sexist. We got a few weeks before he hired a lovely young girl, age 19, which I trained her. If you are new, you are making some errors, which is totally fine in my opinion. So I came in last Tuesday to hear my new boss screaming like a maniac at this young girl. I asked her what happened, and she said she filled the wrong form, which happens even to me. My boss noticed it and screamed at her. I paraphrase it. Boss: you stupid little slut who dumb. Can you be to fill out the wrong form? I should fire you and make sure that you never find any work in this field again. Coworker started crying at this point. Then my boss stormed into his office and slammed the door shut. I asked my coworker if she's okay, and she was still sobbing, so I bought her a coffee and took her to our office grandma. Everyone loves her so much. I was at this point pretty pissed and told everyone what happened. After they learned what he did to our new coworker, 3 stormed into his office and quit after 25 years in this company. Mex's boss said to them that they are worthless and overpaid. They told us that, and a plan was formed. Everyone will quit, except for me for now. What my boss didn't know yet is we had a huge customer audit happening in 3 weeks, which I'm the only certified to prepare for. If we fail this, it would cost us 15 to 20 million euros and the customer would pull the contract. So after my boss learned that the whole department quit, except for me, he was even more pissed. Boss: hey, why the hell did everyone quit? Me: maybe because you're in a hole and a sexist pig. Boss: what? Did you just say you are, a hole? Me: you know what I said? Do you remember the big audit in 3 weeks by customer X? Boss: yeah, what's about that? Me: you know that I am the only one certified to prepare it, right? Boss: yeah, and... Me: I quit as well because I do not want to work for such an a-hole boss CIA, and walked right out to my other coworkers to say goodbye in the whole factory. The production VP noticed it and asked what happened, so I told him and he was pissed. He called the CEO, which I knew pretty well, and said, Robert, the crap hit the fan big time, come down to the production floor now. The CEO asked if it's important, and the VIP said if you want to pass the audit in 3 weeks, then move your ass down here now. So the CEO came running down with the entire C-suite and asked what's so important. Then I piped up and said our whole department quit today and won't come back until this jerk of boss gets removed and fired. Then they asked what happens, and we told them. They were mad and asked how they could fix it. I said fire him and hire a better fit. Because I held the most training and qualifications they asked me, which I gladly said yes. So we took off to my new office with my old department and the CEO in tow. My boss saw me and said arrogantly, decided to come back and beg for your job back, you little word? Nay, nah, just to inspect my new office because you are fired by now. He laughs and said that I'm under him and only the CEO can fire him. So the CEO came around the little corner and said to my boss, get the F out of my company, you are fired, and I make sure that every company knows what you did. My ex-boss was white as a sheet. After that, the CEO called the police and reported him trespassing. In the end, I got a 70K raise and a bonus option, which I declined and asked if we could split it for my coworkers. I don't need that much money, 1 million euro worth of bonuses. My CEO agreed and everyone got their job back and we completed the audit without any fails. The customer was happy, and so were we too. It's just happened again, and I'm rather irritated, but I'll do my best to put it into words here. My mother has some very confusing and backwards expectations for me, and they usually end up contradicting each other. And when they contradict each other, I'm supposed to just magically guess the right answer. She expects, or perhaps demands, that I look after the younger children, all under the age of 10, mind you. Many of my days off from work are spent babysitting. When someone gets hurt, or there are fights between the children, she gets extremely angry at me for not doing a good job, rather than the children themselves for acting like that. She will insist that I need to be watching them more closely. On the other hand, though, if I try to correct the children's behavior in any way, telling them that hitting is bad or whatever else, She gets equally angry and demands that I don't get to parent her kids or that I should stay in my place. She even told me once that I am not, nor will I ever be an equal to her. First of all, good, great. I would never want to be anything like her. But second of all, pick a freaking lane. Do you want me to watch your children closely and protect them from all harm? Or do you want me to step aside and let you do your job, often from another room with the TV at full volume and a phone jammed in your face? Either way, I've tried taking a more laid-back approach and letting natural selection do its thing. There have been a lot more broken toys, loud fights, and even gasp, mild ouchies, as a direct result of her womb goblins being on their absolute worst behavior and treating the furniture, or sometimes each other, like a jungle gym. Sadly, today, I felt like I really had to say something. One child ended up on top of another and was mere milliseconds away from punching their sibling. Our mom walked in after I'd separated them and began explaining why hitting is bad for the millionth time, and she got mad at me, not either child, for daring to undermine her parenting. So I did something that I don't often do, as I know that it doesn't help anything. I said, "Whatever, dude," and walked away. I'm probably looking at a fun lecture about respect or some such tripe later on, or perhaps she'll give me the silent treatment and I'll be rid of her nagging for a day, but I don't really care. I'm just tired of feeling like I can never get on her good side. It's almost like that side of her doesn't exist for me. Even her husband, our dad, whom she also treats poorly, will get the occasional cuddles, movie nights, or showers of affection. But what do I get, honestly? Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.